drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here in Orlando after the Celtics 123-110 loss to the Orlando Magic, a game that they had a very good chance of winning. Came back from down 16 to tie things up in the fourth quarter, but some late game costly mistakes really kind of put this game out of reach. A Josh Minott turnover and a Mia Skata missed layup that led to a transition take foul that led to a Desmond Bain three-pointer. So a bunch of things that just kind of went down the stretch that this team just can't afford to make mistakes. We've kind of figured that out pretty quickly here. And a night like tonight, the mistakes just kind of mounted, and they're back in the loss column after a really nice win against the Washington Wizards. The good news for the Celtics, they get to face the Magic again on Sunday. This is a two-game homestand. I think this is or two-game homestand for Orlando. I think this is the first time all season, or the only time all season, where the Celtics will play one team twice in a row on their home court. And so now they'll be looking for a split. They do fall to 4-6 with this loss, two games below 500, and certainly not a familiar place for the Celtics. Not a familiar place for me as somebody who started covering them the year they won the title and have pretty much only ever seen the Celtics team being incredibly dominant. And so frustrating loss. I feel like it was right there. And if you're somebody who is very much rooting for wins, this was a tough one. I think there have been a few losses early on here. The Jazz lost; they should have won that game. Opening night, they were one play away from winning. So Payton Pritchard said it after the game, but a couple of things go differently, and they're 6-4 right now. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as just being here. But I will say, I mentioned this before, I do these podcasts after every game and focus on the positive, kind of encouraging takeaways, which hasn't honestly been very difficult. I think there were a couple of games that were a little bit challenging. The Utah loss, I was like, I didn't have a lot of positive things to pull from that one. But truthfully, being here in Orlando, and we had shoot around this morning, heard from Derrick White and Jordan Walsh. After this one, we heard from Joe Mazzulla, from Jaylen Brown, Anthony Simons, Payton Pritchard. You can check out all of those media availabilities in full on CLNS Media. But being here, there wasn't like a super dejected feeling around this group. And I think everybody is sensing there are some positives in the way that they're growing, the way that they're fighting. Payton Pritchard said after the game, this is a team that has punked us on the glass before with their physicality. And tonight, I don't think they did. And they fought back into the game despite falling down by double digits early. The Orlando Magic, which are not a three-point shooting team, they averaged 10 threes per game. They had 7 threes in the first quarter. And so really just went out to a hot start. And overall, they shot really well from three. They were 17 of 36, 47%. And so that didn't help. And I think their energy wasn't bad to start the game. Pritchard, Jaylen said he himself feels like he could have come out with a little bit more intentionality. But generally speaking, I think if you're watching this game for effort, for fight, for heart, you saw that. And that's what I want to kind of keep seeing from this team all year long, regardless of who's playing, regardless of what their record is. You never want to stray from like what made this organization great and a winning culture. And even though right now they're 4-6, I still feel like that winning culture, that expectation, that standard is there. But the margin of error is just so slim that there have been some games that feel so winnable, like they're right there, and just there's a few too many mistakes to overcome. So what stood out to me about this one, I don't want to always just rattle through individual performers because I think that there's more nuance and layers to this game than just how individual players played. But I will just say, generally speaking, Jaylen Brown, 32 points on 15 of 28 shooting, 3 assists, 9 rebounds. I think that's the most rebounds he's had in a game so far this season. 2 steals, 4 turnovers, 2 of which were offensive fouls that I don't want to say those don't count as turnovers, but they're better than the live ball turnovers that lead to transition points. But just an incredible third quarter where he went at 8 of 10 from the field. He scored 14 straight points for the Celtics. And to me, it's less about like he didn't play the perfect game. He said it himself. Like in the fourth quarter, I think he kind of went a little dry, missed some shots that he was making earlier in the game. And ultimately, they don't win. And that's what really matters. But I continue to be hugely encouraged by the fact that he is just getting to his spot and delivering. And it's not a surprise. I mean, this is the same guy that won finals MVP a year ago. And those of you that follow my coverage know that I think Jalen's a great player that can achieve a lot and has already achieved a lot, and that has been I think he's been discounted quite a bit by just the media in general, maybe even fans for what he's already done and what he consistently does. But this season, we're seeing his scoring elevate to another level of consistency. And you want to see the wins come along with that, but I don't think the wins are really because he hasn't been able to carry the load as the number one option. I mentioned this a couple of games back, but he was the only player. The Celtics were the only team in the NBA that had only one guy averaging more than 15 points per game a couple of days ago. I think Pritchard's now alongside Jaylen in that category. But he entered tonight averaging 27.7 points per game and puts up 32, again, on high efficiency. And, I asked him post game, this was his first dunk of the season. So he dunked once in this game. It was his first dunk in 10 games, which is very unlike Jaylen. We all know this is a guy that loves to dunk. He has, he was in the dunk contest. He has probably been the top dunker for this team for his entire career. And right now, I think it's not even that he doesn't have the lift, but after tweaking his hamstring in preseason, coming off knee surgery, like he's just has not been at 100%. And he kind of laughed when I asked him about how he's at physically and this being his first dunk. And he was like, that's crazy because he's gotten so accustomed to dunking all the time. And he said, plenty more dunks are coming this season because he's starting to feel better physically. So I feel like we might actually only be scratching the surface of where he's at with his health, which is a good sign. And then also kind of feel like he's just back to all NBA form, which is where he was at the year that he signed his Supermax extension. So there's kind of two dualities of the Celtics season. There's the individual games, which I want to see them win. I want to see them compete. I want to see them claw their way into the playoffs if they're able to and kind of squeeze every last bit of what they have. And I know a lot of you are saying big picture that doesn't make sense. They should tank. They should get a good draft pick. And if it gets to that point, I'll root for a good draft pick as well. But right now, I'm here in Orlando, like I'm covering this each individual game for what it is, the same way that the coaches are coaching each individual game and the players are competing. But as much as I want to see the outcomes be better than tonight's, it's really encouraging that somebody like Jaylen Brown, who regressed a little bit last year and had one of his worst efficiency years ever. And you start to wonder, he's 29, he had knee surgery, like could this be the beginning of a decline in his career? He has not shown that at all through 10 games here. In fact, I think he looks better than ever, and that's with still dealing with some remnants of this hamstring strain that I don't think is necessarily slowing him down, but is instead just making him make more limited movements. That's what he explained to us a couple games ago, that he just doesn't want to he's had some hamstring injuries in the past, so it's not a completely new thing for him. But I continue to be encouraged not just by the way he's playing, but also he continues to be super bought into what they're doing. I could see him leading from the sidelines, keeping guys engaged. He is just approached this year really well, in my opinion. And it's not like, he makes a lot of money. It's his job. Like, it's his job to be professional. I don't want to give flowers for something that is kind of the expectation. But at the same time, it could have easily gone in another direction when you saw how much talent walked out the door this offseason. And obviously the front office didn't seem to prioritize winning when they assembled this roster. And you're in the middle of his prime. And I've said this before, but he could have easily taken that the wrong way. And instead, I think he's really embracing this challenge and embracing the opportunity to be the number one guy and to kind of get more shots than he's gotten in the past and maybe to get the game winner attempts and things like that. So continues to be a positive. He has now scored 30 plus points in 3 straight games, and that's not something that he did often last year. So you're seeing that when he gets to his mid-range, when he gets to his spot, it doesn't really matter that this is an Orlando team with a lot of talented defenders that have made his life difficult before. He's kind of just be able to do what he wants on that end. In the breadth of discussing individual performers, I'll also mention Payton Pritchard, who I know was getting a lot of criticism earlier this season when his shot wasn't falling. Pritchard put together probably his best offensive performance of the season, 27 points on 8 of 16 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3. That's definitely his best three-point shooting night. 4 assists. He was bummed about the turnovers. He on his own accord broke down his turnovers post-game. He had 3. But Pritchard, to me, has just become a very complete player offensively. And I asked him, where do you feel like you're at individually as far as putting together a complete game? He feels like this still was not a complete game for him. And he said he struggled a little bit in the paint. He missed some looks that he should have back. Yet he put up 27 points kind of casually and again, on high efficiency. And this is a guy that a lot of people wondered, how is he going to do as a starter? Is he going to be able to, get his shot off when he's not playing alongside all these all-stars and elite players? And he has been, I would say, after Jaylen, the number two guy on the roster that has been able to create his own shots and get to the line. He was 6 of 8 from the line in this game. Attempted half of the Celtics free throws. So I continue to say, first of all, as an individual player, I think he's a great player that has demonstrated that he is more than just a three-point shooter, which I think at times that's what he's been in his career as an NBA player. But he's been a good rebounder, he's been a good defender, and I think all of that has carried over. And he was a part of tonight's game as well, and especially early on when they really needed to buy a basket and they couldn't. He's the only guy in this team that has consistently been able to produce for himself. And I think there's other guys that will be able to, and in theory are able to, Anthony Simons, Derrick White. But so far, that has just been how it's played out. And so I'm thinking a lot about how next year's roster will look, and Jason Tatum obviously being back and hopefully near where he was at prior to the injury, if not better. Obviously, that's the goal. Jaylen Brown, I think I continue to be encouraged by the play that we've seen from him so far. And Payton Pritchard, I think, is a guy that you have under contract on a bargain deal. I mean, this is one of the best contracts in the NBA, and he has continued to showcase that he is ready for that role. And I know there's a lot of discourse right now about should he be coming off the bench? Should Anthony Simons be starting? I haven't seen anything to make me think that he does not make sense in that first unit. In fact, entering tonight, that starting five with Josh Minott and Payton Pritchard and Jaylen Brown and Neemias Queta and Derrick White was one of the best Ned rating lineups in the entire NBA. And again, this is a 500 basketball team. So that lineup has not been the problem, right? So I maintain that he is right where he should be and continue to be really encouraged by the play that we've seen from him. And he was on an abysmal three-point shooting display to start the year. And here he is now 5 of 8 from the three. He's been shooting better. He's been, even like before he started making his threes, he said they were just feeling better coming off his hand, and he was closer to making them, which is kind of crazy, but that's a part of the game. Derrick White even explained to shoot around this morning that earlier on he was missing to the left and to the right, which is, as a shooter, that's bad. Like, it means you're really off. But now he's missing short or long, which is better. So it's these little things that, like, maybe you're not noticing if you're just looking at the box score, and he's like, oh God, like Pritchard's 0 of 8 again. But he has slowly been inching towards shooting better, and now you're starting to see the fruits of those marginal improvements. So I'm really encouraged. I have the box score here. This is actually Joe Mazzulla's box score. I'm sitting in his post-game press conference seat, and I'm just 8 of 16, 5 of 8, 6 of 8 from the line. Like, you'll take that. And an uncharacteristic turnover game for him. He very rarely has 3 turnovers. So that's part of why he was not thrilled with his individual performance after the game when I kind of asked him about that. I thought he'd be a little bit higher on it than he actually was. Want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. As always, PrizePicks is our great partner for this show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of the season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. I attended finally my first football game. It was a great win, great Patriots win. A lot of fun to watch football in person and start to kind of get acclimated to that sport. And I was very impressed by what I saw. Drake May in particular, which you can pick more for him on rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns, and passing yards. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, secure, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I mentioned Jaylen Brown and Payton Pritchard as 2 kind of bright spots from this game. And the other thing that I'll discuss is just maybe in a category of players. For those of you that are not really worried about the total record this season, and you're not really worried about individual wins and losses, which I know there are many people that's their outlook right now, you're thinking to yourself, what do we have here for the future? There was a bunch of unproven guys on this roster entering the season. I'd actually say Neemias Queta was unproven. Josh Minott was unproven. Luka Garza, Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, all unproven guys that I don't want to say you took flyers on, because some of these guys you drafted in years past, and they're not all new faces, obviously, but I did not know what to expect from any of those players. Through 10 games, there are still a ton of uncertainties around these players, and I'm not gonna act like all the questions have been solved and I have all the answers now on where things are at. That being said, I'm actually overall encouraged by what we have seen out of most of those guys, through 10 games, and again, small sample, things are gonna shake out different goes on, but I'll start with the guy that's gotten probably the most hype and buzz in Boston, and rightfully so, and that's Josh Minott, who had another solid game here, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 3 offensive. What's been really impressive is that he is super confident shooting the three ball. He was 2 of 4 again tonight. He was 3 of 6 last game. So he's he has a quick trigger and he is happy to shoot him. And they've been falling at a decent clip. So again, I'm never going to overreact to, that's 10 threes. He's made 5 of his past 10 threes, but it's a really good sign that he is feeling confident to take those shots because that is going to make him a much more dynamic player for this team. And again, they have a team option. So they will have him on a minimum deal next year, assuming they pick that up, which at this point I would be stunned if they didn't. Minot has made this team's rebounding woes really dissipate. Like when he's on the floor, they are a much better rebounding team. Advanced analytics have already shown that. In this game against the Magic team that has routinely beat the Celtics on the glass, even when they had all their rebounders, it was 14-14 in this game. The Celtics actually grabbed one more offensive rebound than the Orlando Magic did. And Minot has been a big reason why. And it's not just him. He had 8 rebounds in this game. So did Kata. Jaylen Brown actually led the team with 9. So everybody's making an effort. Joe Mazzulla has made clear that rebounding in general is not something that is going to be like we fixed it and now we're all good. It's going to continue to be a decision and something that they have to focus on and drill home. But he has, to me, just watching, not even talking analytics and not even talking film or anything, he has kind of solved the rebounding issues. Like as soon as he was slotted into the starting lineup and started playing 30 minutes a night, and in this game he plays 25 minutes, they are a much better rebounding team with him on the floor. And again, he's been able to score the ball a little bit better than I expected. I didn't really think that he was going to be able to shoot as well as he has. I think he's a keeper, and I know they can't extend him right now, and they're going to be able to keep him beyond next year, TBD. But they found something with him for sure, and it was smart to have that second year option. I really like watching him play. He plays with an energy. He's an alley oop threat right now. I think he's like the top dunker on this team. He plays with a pace, with a tenacity. Like he's just fun to watch. So for sure, one of the guys that has been a bright spot through the first 10 games here. And this was another game of him in the starting lineup where he looked like he belonged. Made a costly mistake. I felt bad. He grabbed that. It was midway through the fourth quarter with them Celtics up by 1. He fought for a loose ball that he got, and then he threw it. I think he intended to throw it to Jaylen, but it was picked up by Anthony Black, who made a layup. And that really felt like it was one of like 3 plays in that stretch that swung the game. So not a perfect Josh Minott game. He doesn't like making mistakes. I could tell he was hard on himself after that. But without a doubt, continues to showcase that he is a great pickup for them this summer, and was somebody that I honestly didn't hear a ton about when they signed him. I didn't know a lot about him. I didn't hear a lot of great things about him, and he has totally exceeded expectations. And in that same breath, I'll just mention Jordan Walsh and Hugo Gonzalez are both guys that when they were drafted, there was a similar like vibe around them of like, okay, these are guys that have the build. They play really hard. They can be disrupt on defense. They will crash the glass. Like we don't know about the shot, like, but a lot of this stuff was the same. And Hugo came out much hotter his rookie season. Looked much more NBA ready. Obviously has NBA, professional basketball experience that Jordan didn't. I also think that he is a better athlete and has a more NBA ready body than Jordan did in his rookie season. And so naturally, I think the fan base gets excited about Hugo, and then it's kind of like, okay, well, Jordan was the bust. Jordan was the second round pick. So second round picks, I don't know if they can ever really be busts because most of them are. Most of them don't end up making it in the NBA. What I'll say is in this game, Anthony Simons played 2 minutes in the first half, and I think that was because he made a sequence of mistakes that were pretty costly for this team. It was a -11 in those 2 minutes, and Joe is Joe, and he's not going to play you because you make a lot of money. Like he's going to play who he thinks will help them win. These were the only guys outside of Kata that were positives in the plus minus. Hugo was a +9 in 9 minutes of action. Got 4 rebounds and an assist. And again, Hugo, like his impact will never appear on the stat sheet as much as it does in real life. Like there were some moments where he made the right cut that opened it up for Jaylen, or he made the right pass. or he tipped it out and somebody else got the rebound, but like I saw in the moment, like, hey, that was an Hugo winning play. Like he is just a winning basketball player. I don't think he's gonna have a huge rookie season here. Like that was never the plan. That was never the expectation. But he hasn't gone to Maine. Maine had their first game today. They lost in overtime. But he's continued to be here in Boston, and they have continued to benefit a lot from his energy. I mean, he had the highest plus minus in this game, and in that same breath, Jordan Walsh, who had probably the best game of his NBA career on Wednesday against the Wizards, gets rewarded. He plays 19 minutes tonight, and he made some mistakes late in the game. But I thought that his stint in the first quarter into the second quarter was very similar to what he did on Wednesday against the Wizards, where he checks into a game where the energy is not at 100%. And he came in, just started making winning basketball players, grabbing rebounds, deflections, playing lockdown defense. And I think people gave up on Jordan because Hugo comes in and he's like the shinier, almost better version of it, it seems like. And I'm not making that declaration, but I think that's been kind of the feeling around him. But it's not either or. Tonight you saw both of them playing. They're both under contract. They're both on rookie deals. And if you can get something out of Jordan this season and maybe sign him to a deal down the road, or even if it's just for right now, like I liked what we saw from Jordan in this game, and that's back-to-back games where he has impacted winning, and the box score has demonstrated that. I spoke to Jordan Walsh this morning at shoot around, and I said, it looks like you were fighting for your life in that Wizards game. And he said, I absolutely was. Like I was fighting for my life. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was confusing myself, and I was thinking if I'm confusing myself, then at least I'm confusing the opponent as well. But this is a guy that knows the deal. This is the third year of his rookie contract. His contract will become fully guaranteed if they don't waive him before January. Like this is a high pressure moment for his career. He has to break through the season. This is the year. This is where there's going to be opportunities. We see the opportunities are right there. And I've really liked what we've seen from him so far. He had a nice summer league, and he's looked good in the few games that he's appeared in so far this season. Again, entering Wednesday's game, he had only played more than 2 minutes in one game, and that was garbage time against the Rockets. So he was at the bottom of the rotation a week ago, and now he's already seemingly jumped for now, and this stuff changes all the time. Baylor Scheiman, who was a DNP tonight, Chris Boucher, who was also a DNP tonight, and Xavier Tillman wasn't here. He was out for personal reasons. Hopefully everything's okay there. But that's the reality with Jordan right now, is that he's made a lot of strides in these past few days. And I like the dynamic that him and Hugo are bringing to this team of like Joe kind of unleashes them and they play super, super hard with this kind of passion and love of the game that I really enjoy. I really treasure kind of seeing them in action. And listen, these are two of the three guys that Brad Stevens has drafted in the last 3 years, and I like what we saw from them tonight. Again, I think that they were part of what made this game become a game that came down to the final few minutes of the fourth quarter, because they prevented that momentum from continuing to build for Orlando. Last thing I'll mention, a lot has been made of Derrick White's struggle so far this season. I think there was a little bit of a shooting slump situation going. I think there's also the reality that he is dealing with, not the same screeners he's had in years past, not the same defensive pressure. That more defensive pressure. Like he's now higher on the scouting report. He's not playing with Tatum and Porzingis and Drew Holiday and these other guys that are commanding a lot from opponents. All that being said, Derrick White is looking better. He's looking more comfortable out there. I mean, you look at his stat sheet: 16 points, 10 assists, 2 steals, a block. He was 7 of 16 from the field. It's pretty much just the threes at this point that haven't come around. He was 1 of 6 from 3. When they do, and I still think three-point shots coming around. I mean, this is a guy that has become a really good three-point shooter for the past few years, and last year set a franchise record for most threes made in a single season. When that three-point shot comes around, I think Derrick White is going to feel the weight of the world off his shoulders, because Pritchard, it already has, was 5 of 8 tonight. Derrick's next. I really do believe that. So Derrick is a positive for me tonight. It wasn't the perfect game, still not shooting the way he would like to, but you're seeing him make strides in that direction. So overall, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This was a tough loss. They had this one. I think that they fought, they clawed their way into it. This would have been a great win. It would have put them in 500. And if you're like me, where you want to see this team make a push, make the playoffs, then this was a critical one, just like the Jazz one, just like the 76ers one. Like there are some tough losses here, At the same time, I continue to feel encouraged by a lot of what we're seeing. I'm encouraged by the fact that Jaylen Brown is playing at an all-NBA level, despite the fact that he's not 100% healthy. I'm encouraged by the fact that these young guys, Hugo, Jordan, are showing this like fight, the spirit. They're fitting into the system, and I'm seeing flashes of NBA players down the road, and especially for Hugo being 19, like it's really good to see. And then I think they found a steal with Josh. I really think they did. It's like the redraft, right? Like Josh was drafted by the Wolves, spent a few years there, never really did anything, and that's when it's like you get your second chance of life, and he is fighting like hell to keep that chance going. So I enjoyed this game. This was a good fight. That they played hard. A lot of frustrating stuff happened down the stretch for sure. We'll be back at practice tomorrow. Celtics don't have an off day in between these Orlando Magic games, so we'll hear from them again tomorrow. And then Sunday back here for the second game in this two-game sequence against the Magic. So this is another road trip, three-game road trip. It's Magic, 76ers. So three tough teams that I expect to see in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Uh, Not the outcome you want, but a lot of things to like, and you can watch it in the entirety of all the post-game press conferences. Jaylen Brown says some interesting things about the officials. You can check that out on CLNS Media, as well as Joe Mazzulla's comments pregame and postgame. He talked a little bit about kind of what he thinks went wrong here, as well as the other players that spoke: Anthony Simons, Payton Pritchard, Jaylen, like I mentioned. So that's all for now. Let me know what you thought about this game. Let me know what's standing out to you, positives, negatives. I do really enjoy going through and reading the comments and kind of seeing where you all are out. I recognize all the usernames now. I know everybody's stances. I know who's high and low on who. So continue to leave your thoughts. I think it's helpful to have this little community here on this podcast. So appreciate you all. I'll be back with some more coverage on Sunday.